Hello, 6th graders. Welcome to Big Ideas Math, Section 10.3 Extension, Choosing Appropriate Measures lesson. Pause while you write the section number and lesson in your math notebook. Pause again while you write today's lesson objective in your math notebook. Today's objective is use the shape of a distribution to choose the most appropriate measures to describe the center and the variation. Today we'll begin on page 256 in the green math book. Let's start with the key idea, which you need to copy into your interactive student notebook. You can use a measure of center and a measure of variation to describe the distribution of a data set. The shape of the distribution can help you choose which measures are the most appropriate to use. Choosing appropriate measures. The mean absolute deviation uses the mean in its calculation. So when a data distribution is symmetric, use the mean to describe the center and use the MAD to describe the variation. So for that you need to think back to our last lesson and think about what the data looked like. If it looked like a bell curve or if it was flat, then you wanted to, that means it was symmetric, then you want to use the mean for this to describe the center and the MAD to describe the variation. The interquartile range uses quartiles in its calculation. So when the data distribution is skewed, so it goes like that, or the other direction, then you're going to use the median to describe the center and the IQR to describe the variation. Be sure you have that all copied down in your notebook. This math practice on the left-hand side is important as well. It says, understand quantities. What effect can outliers have on the mean, on the median, and explain that. So that's something to think about, and we've talked about that a lot in our lessons. So an outlier, something that's a whole lot larger or a whole lot smaller than most of the data, can change the value of the mean and the value of the median. So it's something to think about. Now let's take a look at example 1. Choosing appropriate measures. The dot plot shows the average number of hours students in a class sleep each night. Letter A asks us what are the most appropriate measures to describe the center and the variation. If we look at the plot, we can see that most of the data values are on the right, clustered around 9, and the tail extends to the left. So the distribution is skewed left. This means that the median and the interquartile range are the most appropriate measures to describe the center and the variation. Letter B says describe the center and the variation of the data set. The median is 8.5 hours. The first quartile is 7.5 and the third quartile is 9. So the interquartile range is 9 minus 7.5, which equals 1.5 hours. The data are centered around 8.5 hours. The middle half of the data varies by no more than 1.5 hours. Now we'll take a look at example 2. We're also choosing appropriate measures. The frequency table shows the number of states that border each state in the United States. So here's our frequency table over to the left. And we have been asked to display the data in a histogram, so that's been done for us. And it says draw and label the axes, so that's been done. And draw a bar to represent the frequency of each interval. And remember that we always label the axes and title our graph. And letter B says, what are the most appropriate measures to describe the center and the variation? The left side of the graph is approximately a mirror image of the right side of the graph. So if we draw a little line over it, we can see that it's kind of a bell shape. It's pretty symmetrical. So the distribution is symmetric. So the mean and the mean absolute deviation are the most appropriate measures to describe the center and the variation. You are almost finished with this flipped lesson. To complete it, you need to be prepared with your notes, vocabulary, and any other work from the flipped lesson completed. You also need to be prepared with any questions and a good attitude.